Okay, so I think let's give this meeting a start and welcome everyone. It's great to have you all here. It's great to see interest in this meeting. And today we are officially launching the EVERSE Network. Now, I will not talk myself too much about it, but we got a number of speakers lined up for you. So let me just, I've got a very, very small and quick presentation just to set the context for this meeting, and then I will leave you to more interesting speakers. My name is Marco Bartolini. I will be chairing this meeting, so for anything, please do reach out to me using Zoom or even after the meeting if needed. I'm joining you today from the headquarters of the SKA Observatory in Manchester, UK. And today, so what are we talking about today? I will just give you a brief intro to how we handle this meeting. Then we'll have a presentation about what the EVERSE project is, and then about what the EVERSE network is. And being this a network, the focus of the meeting today will be largely on networking. And so there's a second part of the meeting, which is mostly dedicated to a conversation with with all of you in the audience, which means we have collected some questions, and there will be time for more of that. Now, before we move into the meeting, the EVERSE meeting are regulated by our code of conduct. There's the full URL there. There's a little extract on the right. I think mostly I would say be nice and use welcoming language, be respectful of each other, and let's assume positive intent and welcome criticism. I think nothing new, but all of these applies to the online tools that we will be using as well. So to the Zoom chat, we will be using other tools as well. And let's just behave professionally on all the platforms that we will be using. And about that, we will be using a number of those, but mainly we will be using Zoom, and you're all used to that by now. Just a reminder, switch off your mic when you're not speaking. And if you want to take the word, please use your Zoom hand. And we will be using a tool called Slido. Hopefully you are familiar with that, but if you're not, it's very simple to use. And these are all the coordinates you need in order to use the tool. You can access at slido.com with that code. There's a direct URL or the QR code that you can use here. And we will use this tool to for Q&A sessions and for a poll session at the end. So once you enter the tool, you will see in the top bar, there's a Q&A where you can, it's open already. So if you got questions there, you can already start typing in if you need. But it will be open throughout the meeting, and we will have moments where we can stop and have a look at the questions, and there will be sessions, and there will be a moment just for those. Together with me, there's Sanje, Giacomo, and Mikhail, who will be moderating the session and taking care of the chat, of the questions, of the polls, and everything that's related to the rest of the audience. But yeah, I think enough of me, and it's been boring enough. Thank you all for your patience. But I think let's get into the meeting, and I want to hand it over to Fotis. Now, Fotis is the project coordinator for the EVERSE project. He is a senior researcher at the Institute of Applied Biosciences at the Center for Research and Technology, Hellas, in Saloniki, Greece. And he is active in the context of FAIR, open research software, and is co-leading the EVERSE Opportunity Area 7 on research software, also coordinating the EVERSE project. So, Fotis, over to you.
Many thanks, Marco. Let me share my screen real fast. That should be fine. Yes. So, thanks everyone for joining. It's a real pleasure to see that much interest for this formal launch of the EVERSE Network, and I hope that you'll find this interesting down the road. So, the next 5 minutes, more or less, I'll try to give you a quick overview of what the project's all about, mostly to set the stage on the discussion moving ahead. So, everyone here probably is very fond of software, and hopefully that's the main reason that you're here. But I'm hoping that everyone recognizes that right now software is not considered as a first-class citizen in science as it stands. This is something that we want to change, so that's the main remit of the project itself. At the same time, I'm hoping that everyone can agree that not all software has the same level of importance or impact, if you like. Of course, there is foundational software, but if you look at the broader groupings of software itself, we're recognizing that there are three major tiers. So tier 3 is the more abundant one, and this is mostly software that is being prepared and used by the same group, the same people. This is the analysis code. In terms of abundance, it's the more abundant one because everyone is putting together software at the various levels of academia and industry. But also in terms of the expectations, it is much lower in terms of what are the requirements of quality, of excellence this code might require. Then we're moving to prototype tools, less abundant, but this is essentially software that is being used by others rather than the group, the people who actually developed in the first place. These are the most commonly used tools, libraries, etc. So there are some expectations of quality, of excellence, of robustness of the code moving in that particular tier. And then we have tier 1, research software infrastructure. This is essentially software that is at the foundation of what other software can be doing. And for that, you have multiple different groups across the globe often to working together in making this available to the rest of the community. So it is significantly less abundant, but also the expectations of quality and excellence are much higher. So this is where EVERSE is coming in. And essentially, EVERSE is trying to connect multiple different communities, different perspectives. So from the purely software point of view, and we're seeing here connections to communities like NumFocus, Bioconductor, etc., to the science and the scientific communities representing the context of EVERSE through the EOS science clusters that you see on the top right. But at the same time, beyond the research software specific and science ones, we also want to make sure that both leadership and the wider communities are taking consideration. And this is where communities like RISA, Software Sustainability Institutes, Science for Africa, and also more policy-oriented ones like EOS and the European Commission are relevant. And this is where EVERSE is trying to bring everyone together and making sure that this is addressed. So, in a nutshell, EVERSE is trying to create this kind of a framework for research software and code excellence. And this is done, or hopefully it is done with the communities and for the communities themselves, ultimately being the foundations of what we're hoping to become a virtual institute for research software excellence. There are a lot of outputs that we're expecting here, and two of the primary ones are essentially the indicators and the good practices for research software quality, as well as a framework for credit recognition for aspects around research software quality, coming from the coding itself to maintaining, sustaining, training people, etc. There are already more people involved through these different partners of the project, and you can see that we are spanning all different disciplines and geographic locations within Europe. For the next couple of slides, I'm going to focus a bit more on the objectives themselves. Again, hopefully giving an indication of what are the expectations. The slides are also linked on the Indico page, so you're able to download them and see them at your own pace if you so wish. So on one hand, we want to define this framework for recognition, reward, and career development. The role of the RSC and the researcher who codes is not something that is easily captured right now in a more mature way. So hopefully EVERSE will help put some more steps in the correct direction. At core is to focus on tools and resources around research software quality. And these are expected to rely on existing practice and standards, not recreating the wheel. It's one of the key elements of EVERSE. So we want to be able to capture what is already out there, what is being used, and make sure that they are as much aligned as possible. That's the rationale of EVERSE, act as a glue. In order to do that, we want to have this community of people work together. So we want to do this through an ecosystem of stakeholders, which are represented through the different scientific communities, again, through the EO science clusters. But ultimately, this is not to happen and be completed by the end of this project. This is mostly to get us started. So we want to have this collaborative community-led structure to continuously improve this alignment, this catalog of good practices and indicators. And we want researchers, software developers, and everyone else interested in this software to be actively involved in this discussion. And this is one of the main roles of this network. In order to assess the project, we have pilot cases, and these are coming across all 5 domains. As you can see here, you can see more information about each of those pilots in these boxes. But as you can see, there are completely different perspectives of or level of maturity of the research software involved in those cases. This is the actual structure of the project. This is usually the most boring part for a lot of people. I want to highlight the image on the right-hand side, where you can see that the 3 main, let's say, technical aspects, the knowledge, the tools, and the pilots are very tightly connected, because we want to make sure that the knowledge base of the good practices is very well aligned with the processes and tools and indicators that are captured and being used by the communities. And this in turn also are connected to the pilot cases that will be driving this. And this is an iterative process. So we start with a set and then we continuously improve it based on the feedback. And all of this fits directly into the training and recognition framework, because all these elements need to be cataloged, recognized, and captured in a concise way. So in terms of what we expect to have as an output, beyond this curation process of these indicators and good practices, one of the key elements that I consider quite important is that we're hoping to have the notion of the software quality defined in the context of EOS, which means that moving ahead, when we're discussing about concrete outputs of efforts and initiatives, we have a common understanding what we expect in terms of research software quality that is coming on that. The second key expectation is to have a baseline quality indicators of what we would call minimum quality, but this is not something to be universally adopted, but rather taking the concept of fit for purpose. So we have this perspective in mind. We already have some of those outputs in place in an emerging way, if you like. The network, you'll hear more about it. This is our launch event, after all. I want to highlight a bit more the RSQ kit. There is a software quality kit, as you can see. This is one of the key elements, key outputs of the project that will capture recipes around good practices in a community-led way and be accessible as a knowledge base for everyone to use, contribute, and hopefully stick around for much longer than the end of this project. We also we're trying to define a common reference model, at least for using a common vocabulary within the project, and aligning this with the expectations and what are the good practices from outside of the project itself, because we want this to be as relevant and useful as possible in the long term. And as I mentioned before, we have the concrete activities around training, around research software quality, but also, more importantly in my mind, and more challenging, how to define a coherent way to recognize and reward efforts around research software, from the code to training, etc. And this is not something that we are doing in isolation, in a silo. We are trying to collaborate with other efforts and initiatives within Europe and hopefully beyond. You can see some of the immediate collaborations that we have, and indeed to name Oscar's Faircore for Use, Skills for Use, and Science Life Lab. as one of the more close collaborators at this point. But we also have a lot of related projects and efforts that we are quite well aligned with, both in terms of EVERSE taking outputs from these efforts, but also us giving guidance and instructions from that area. And finally, we're hoping we have a huge number of projects that can ultimately benefit from EVERSE or can actually contribute to that. And your own initiative organization might fit in that particular case. Finally, in closing, we're not looking this also only in the context of Europe. We want to make sure that this is relevant and aligned to similar activities, very similar activities happening across the world. And we already have a planned a joint event with Science for Africa Foundation, hopefully to happen within this year. And we are very closely aligned to similar activities and networks like RISA that I mentioned before and Clarify from South Africa. And again, trying to make sure that input, efforts, and activities across the globe are being taken into consideration. With that, I'm hoping I have not bored you too much. I'd like to thank you again for joining this event. And I'd like to hear all your questions moving home.
Okay, so we already have a few questions online from Slido. It's great to see that the engagement works. And I would, at this point, maybe start with the question that got top voted right now. And this is, how does EVERSE define the concept of software quality?
All right, I see that we start with the easy questions. So right now, what we are trying to achieve is reach a common definition of at least the indicators that align software quality. This is a rather challenging effort because we need to capture what is already out there, because we're not going to recreate indicators out of nowhere. There are a lot of initiatives that do produce and have been using software quality indicators for quite some time. And we want to align those to what the scientific communities for research software are actually doing in the first place. So that's the bridge that we're doing. Hopefully, by identifying what are these minimal fit for purpose indicators of research software quality, we'll be able to then identify and reach a consensus on a broad enough definition of research software quality. But we don't have something very concrete yet that I can share with any kind of confidence.
Okay, thank you. And I would take one more question for now. They will all be stored, but we have a dedicated Q&A session later on. So I'm just going to take the one that's upvoted. The second highest is, there's a lot of resources out there covering many of those topics. Is the plan to collect and harmonize those, or to create new resources from scratch?
Awesome question. The short answer is yes, we want to cover and to collect those resources. Harmonizing them is a bit of a tough call because I'm not sure anyone can make strong arguments on adapting or changing something that's already being used, but aligning them in sense of these two different indicators coming from different communities are very much talking about the same thing is something that we are already doing for the last, well, almost a year. Creating new from zero, I would argue that this is not the priority unless there is a very clear specific gap saying that, well, for this particular aspect, for this particular good practice that is being extensively used, there is not a clear indicator, so we might need to introduce one. But the primary and the major focus is to reuse and collect what is already out there.
Okay, thank you, Fotis. There's one more last interest, and I think it's a good idea to cover it immediately. Could you touch upon a bit more in detail what the RSQ kit is, so that we know from the start?
Yes, that is perfect. I pasted the actual link to the resource on the chat window because already an alpha version is out there and being dynamically populated, if I can call it like that. So the RSQ kit is the research software quality kit. And essentially, it's a service produced by the EVERSE project. And the goal is to collect curated resources on recipes, on good practices. The idea is to have this as concretely as possible, ranging from answering questions, how can I work about licensing software, how can I write readable code, how can I do version control, and these are short, up to the point, concise recipes with examples of corresponding tools and services that can facilitate that. At the same time, the expectation is to expand this with particular recipes and aspects that would be very well tied to research software quality based on the indicators that we're currently collecting. But this, again, the RSQ kit, the goal is to act as our knowledge base, curate information accessible to everyone, and also open for everyone to contribute because it's a GitHub page resource, which means that people can actively contribute to the information that is listed there.
Okay, thank you. Then I will hand back to Marco and then to Graham, so we can move on. We store your questions and we will get back to them at the Q&A session.
That is great. It's good to see the slider is working well as well. So please continue there, upvote for existing questions or add new ones. But yeah, as Fotis just mentioned, I think the network element of this project is really key and fundamental in leveraging the knowledge from the community and understanding what the community needs. So talking about the network, the EVERSE network, today with us is Graham Stewart. Graham is a senior staff scientist at CERN. He's working in the software for experiments group, and is a member of the Atlas experiment and chair of the HAP Software Foundation Steering Group. And within the EVERSE project, he is leading the Virtual Institute of Research of Software Quality Network Creation. So nobody better than him to tell us about the EVERSE network. Graham, over to you.
Super. Thanks so much for the introduction, Marco. So indeed, my goal here is to give you a brief introduction to what we're thinking about for the network of research software quality and the role that that could play. But this, of course, is in some ways only a lead into a conversation that we want to have all of us together, because it's not just a network for EVERSE. We might coordinate it now, but the intention is that everyone that wants to participate can play a full part in that. So let's break it apart. What's research software quality? So, of course, I think here people will be convinced that software is a critical part of our scientific process. We use it all the time in all of our research topics, from simulation to, well, now called digital twins, data acquisition and the analysis of the results. Software is critical because it's the means by which we transform data into knowledge. And we also recognize that the size of the software required to support our recent and indeed upcoming experiments is growing. And our organizations are still evolving to recognize this increasing need for software. Not all of them do yet give software the recognition that it really should have. As Fotis said, our aim is to change that and to get software recognized as a first-class citizen in the research software landscape. And all of this means that if we know that software is very important, we want software to be good quality. So that means a good fit for its purpose. Fotis already outlined the fact that not all software needs to meet the same metrics or should meet the same metrics. There's a variety of software that's used for different purposes, and that has to hit different notes on the scale of software metrics. And one of our driving things here is that we're striving to make our software fair. As part of fair data, we need fair software to analyze that data. So findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable as well. And that's a lot of what makes up what we would consider good quality software, is that it hits those metrics. So that's software quality. Why is it important? Why a network? So we have many organizations concerned with different aspects of software quality. I just list some of them there. It's clear that as both a problem to be solved, but also an opportunity to be grasped, we're still evolving and discovering best practices for managing our software over its lifetime. And that can go from legacy codes that were written decades ago, perhaps in languages that people don't know so well right now, to the latest newborn project ideas when today somebody types Git init, some really cool piece of software. That also, of course, encompasses million-line code bases, which are relied on by many communities, right through to scripts that produce some final publication plot and put the labels in exactly the right place. Now, one of the things that we know is that the scientific world can be a bit slow to embrace some of the best practices from industry. But one of the sticking points is that you maybe can't take something that's been developed in industry and just drop it into the research software domain. So one of the things we would want to do as EVERSE and in the network is recontextualize things to be effective for the software domain. And overall, I think this leads to a body of practice around research software, which is emerging. We think there's a lot to learn from each other, and that's what motivates having a network to do that. A little bit about the network and EVERSE itself. Fotis already ran over most of this. We have this role to enhance software quality and promote software as a first-class citizen. We specifically conceived the network activity in the EVERSE proposal so that it would foster and help shape software quality practices, specifically in Europe, because that's where our funding comes from. But this is a worldwide research context, so we're very happy to work with anybody from anywhere on the globe. We want to provide a connection between your community and EVERSE activities. And we just outlined what the research software quality kit was. And as Fotis said, that's an open kit. So we are here to make that a two-way street. That if you're doing something really cool in your community and you think, you know what, more people should know about this, then that can form part of the RSQ kit. We want to help shape software quality policies and practice based on your need. Policies are important because they often inform our management about the kind of initiatives that they should be supporting. We want to learn from wider practice in industry and translate that back into academic research software. And we'd like to have a lot of events connected to the network as well. So things that showcase good practice, that maybe introduce cool tools that not everybody knows, that understand communities and what they're doing, and also provide training as well. So let's run over some of the activities that we've considered in terms of the network, but we're also delighted to hear your ideas as well. So webinars are one thing. Webinars are online seminars. So these would be online presentations. We think there are a huge number of interesting topics around software quality. We recently, for instance, did a best practice survey in EVERSE. And it would be very interesting to hear what we learned from that among the many different research communities in Europe. How are the different communities addressing software quality in their workflows and pipelines? We have a specific work package on which is looking at that inside of EVERSE. Of course, all of this happens in a context which has many external drivers as well. So we'd like to examine how upcoming technologies are going to affect our software. From hardware aspects, such as the fact that for very high data rate applications, we might want to use GPUs today instead of writing CPU code, or to new upcoming languages like Julia, as well as our workhorses of C++ and Python. You know, what's happening in those languages? How is that going to help us? And we'd like to make some presentations and discussions on the latest context of things like the RSQ kit and software quality pipelines as well. And of course, we imagine that you have really great ideas as well for webinars, and we'd really like to hear you propose them as well. Now, tools discovery and training is a big part of what we would like to do as well. You know, for those of us who've been in this game for quite some time, we've seen things move from handcrafted make files to CMake. We've gone from CVS to Git and to social coding as well. So the tools are evolving all the time, and there are always cool new add-ons which are coming as well. So one Everse area of activity is discovering new tools, and we'd like to present them as part of the network events so that a wider audience can become aware of them. And for those that are using them, we can have a discussion about how to use them most effectively. So this is part of our wider goal to promote tools in practice. And as well as having online presentations and discussions there, we'd really like to see that translate over into in-person events such as training sessions, network meetups, and satellite events. And I should mention here that if any of you are attending the Deutsche RSE conference next week, next week? Yes, next week. We will be there as Everse and having a discussion about tools and best practices there. I mentioned a little bit about policies and task forces. I think the network can play a role in influencing policies. There's a lot of policy-based committees. I mean, sometimes I get a bit frustrated that all they produce is Word documents, but I think the important thing there is that these actually have a value, and the goal is to have these policies backed up by practical measures. And it may turn out that the network might want to set up task forces that look at particular areas of software quality and provide informed inputs. I think that's something as a community we would really like to examine. And Fotis already mentioned this new EOSC opportunity area in research software, and I think the network can have a strong interaction with that group as well. So I think ultimately, what we're really aiming for here is what you might call a community of practice, because software is about code, but it's also, of course, about people. And we want the network to be a community of people who care about software quality, both for their own projects and in the wider community context of research. So the network is an evolving community of practice. So that means people who share a concern or passion for something that they do. And I think what's really important is that we learn how to do it better as we interact regularly. This is something that we believe is worth striving for, and there's a lot to be gained from it. And we welcome really everybody to join us, whatever their location or scientific affiliation. Now, I just wanted to just spin up a couple of one slide about who we are today, because it's quite interesting. We asked you some questions upon registration, and you can see that many people who are in the meeting here today identify as being research software engineers or researchers who code. But we have a wide representation as well, from people who are developing software policy or managing software teams or involved in training as well, and that's really cool. There's a sort of a split, let's say, between people who have been in their role for more than 5 years, so we hope to draw on your experience there, and people who are just starting up in a role which is new for them. We have a lot of people here from the science clusters. Approximately half of people would associate with a science cluster, but also half of people maybe have a more generic role where they're not addressing any particular science cluster, but they provide more general support into software. So I think that's very interesting to see who we are here today. And we hope to, of course, broaden the base of people involved in the network as we grow the network over the next couple of years of the EVERSE project. So just wrapping up, the very important part of the conversation for me is not what I'm saying to you, but what you can tell me. So learning about your needs. We've outlined here some of our ideas about the network. We certainly haven't thought of everything useful that it could do. So we'd really like to hear from your side about what you hope to get out of the network, where you see we could focus on to have the greatest impact, or also maybe learn about the areas where your community needs the most support. So next, we have an interactive session on Slido that I hope is fun. And we have been gathering questions in the open Q&A, so I'm really looking forward to the rest of the discussion. And that's what I had in terms of introducing the network. I hope that was useful to you.
Thank you, Graham. I think that was certainly to the point and very useful for me as well. I hope it was the same for everyone. Now, questions are popping up. I think there was one question we were looking at in the slide. There was about it has disappeared now because it has been answered in the slide, but probably it's worth recapping that. And it was about how do we define a research software? And
yeah.
because that sets the context quite clearly for everyone, I think, and the scope. I don't know who wants to take that, but probably.
Do you want me to have a go at answering it, or shall we?
Yeah, Shaib, please do.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been a Shaib Sufi here from University of Manchester on the EVERSE team. There's been quite a lot of discussion about what research software means over the years. So I'm putting a link into our, everyone, this is our current definition that we're using for the project, which is around the FAIR for Research Software working group. And this, as you can see, there's an inclusive definition, an exclusive definition, so it's a little bit hazy depending on whether people see software that is developed, solely during research or wider things which are used in research. And also, it's important to note that this isn't set in stone. No doubt the conversation around this may continue, and we are happy to receive comments. Just a little plug for RSQ Kit. It's public. You can raise issues. If you don't like anything on a particular page or you think a particular reference is missing, please do feel free to add. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks, Shaib. Now I'm looking at Sonia, Giacomo, Michael. Is there any question that we want to take before we go into the poll session?
I think we can go on to the poll session for now, and we will keep collecting the questions then. In general, if you as a participant, or especially if the people from the EVERSE project that are here, and you see a question that you can answer, please feel free to answer it directly. And so we would now go to a bit more of an interactive part where we are asking you some questions, because we're also interested in your backgrounds, what you already know, what you see as important. And this will also be on Slido, but it will be as a poll. And I will share my screen, so you should also be able to see it then. The app or the browser web application that you're using should automatically redirect you to Slido. And we have different types of questions. We have word clouds, rankings, multiple choice questions, open-ended. And so with the same link, you should be able to access it. And you can also always switch back to the Q&A. You will see a small tab on the Slido bar that says Q&A, and the other one says poll. And the poll is what we're doing right now. So it's great to see we have so many people coming in here. Maybe a small note on the word cloud. If you see a word that you would also need, like in this case, your country, your city, then it's easier to write it in the same style, so we can have it in a big cluster all together. Of course, we will collect all your answers from the Q&A. If there's something in the chat, of course, too. We will then afterwards go through this. We'll have this as a collected analytic, as collected results. And this will, of course, be very useful for us, but we will also use it to then get in touch with you afterwards and to keep in touch, to get touch back upon the topics that we see obviously are of great interest. So no worries, we will definitely be in touch with you with everything that we gather from this today. Okay, that's a very lovely mix here from mostly Europe, but I do see some outside Europe too. I'm very happy to see this is a global interaction here. And I'll leave it open for a few more seconds, and then I would like to continue going to the second question. Okay, then we've had a total of 210 registrations, I think. And we're here today with nearly 130 people. This is very great. To see this involvement, we would be also interested to know, how did you learn about the EVERSE network and also about the event today? So it seems to be that the most interacting part, or the most active part, was by colleague recommendation, which is great to hear. So it means the communities are getting in touch with each other and to hear from each other. It's lovely. Seeing as the social media is a little bit lower on our webpage, and also on the slides, you can find our handles. We are on Blue Sky, on Fostodon, which is an instance of Mastodon. We will not be on Twitter for much longer. We'll actually be closing this account. And after this event, we'll also have a YouTube channel. So you can get in touch with us and see what we're doing. There's also a LinkedIn handle. And yeah, you can keep following us to get all the newest updates. Okay. So these were a few introduction questions. We would then continue to now go a bit more topical. And the next one is going a bit more on research software engineering, research software quality, what you already know, what are your involvements. The first one is, are you involved in any research engineering initiatives? Should you not find yours, there will be a follow-up question where you can type it in directly. Right, it should be, you should have the option to click multiple options right now. I enabled this. So
I'm afraid
easy.
not.
No?
No.
I just said to multiple questions. Should be possible.
I could, yeah.
Okay. I don't know, maybe you have to refresh at some point. I'm not sure. Usually it's quite fast in picking it up. I will go to the next question where you can then also put in other initiatives. I think this is looking good. So actually, let me go to the next one immediately. So what other initiatives, some of you already mentioned them, what other initiatives are you involved with, or do you know that we haven't listed here yet? Okay, that's looking good. Thanks for the big involvement here. Yeah, we could have. I mean, there are many regional or national RSE alliances, so it's good to see that they're actually working. So we didn't know what which ones to list and to not exclude. So it's great to see this involvement here. Okay. I still see people typing, so I'll leave it for a second. Right, I will go to the next questions in a few seconds. So write your last answers, please. Okay, then I'll say thank you at this point. We'll still stay a little bit in this topic here. And the next question is whether or not research software engineering is a recognized career path at your institution, university, company, your workspace in general. Okay, it's good to see half of our participants say yes, research software engineering is recognized as a career or as a job title. And I think the others are a bit unsure whether or not, or it's not seen as such, or maybe it has a different name. Could be maybe more specified as a developer or a researcher who codes. Maybe it's just not specified as such, but it's good to see that there's actually a good involvement here. In EVERSE, we're also doing a lot with best practices for research software and in software quality. There's been a few surveys, and there will be probably a service also coming up on this, but we would like to ask you here directly too, if there are any established guidelines on research software best practices. We're especially interested, of course, in yes, and if yes, try to specify maybe in a few words what guidelines these would be. I guess I understand this is a very, very open question, but it would be good to see if there is anything already happening on this part.
Sanya, I think in many of the questions that are coming on Slido, there's rightly referencing existing initiatives and existing standards as well. So it would be good to understand here if, if there are custom ad hoc practices defined by the organization, or for example, if the organizations are referring to existing standards from the wider research world or even from the wider IT industry. I think that would be great to understand.
actually quite many guidelines coming in, or guidelines from initiatives. It's great. Right, then please get to the end of your answers, and I would then go on to the next set of questions, which will slightly change topic. Okay, so for the next set of questions, there will be two questions that sound very similar. One will be a bit more on your personal preferences, and one will be on your objective view on research software quality. The first one will also have a direct follow-up. So we are now going towards challenges and interests in research software quality. So I would first ask you, what is the biggest challenge in research software quality today? What do you see as the biggest challenge here? I guess one thing we can definitely get out from this is maintenance. That's mentioned a few times, and also as a big one, funding and recognition. We'll definitely note that, and we do also work on this, or our part of our goals are exactly this, to tackle these challenges. Then please submit your last answers.
I love the practical rather than theoretically perfect input. I think, especially in the research work, we sometimes tend to be academic in how we approach the topic. And I think really the goal here of EVERSE is to try and define something practical. It's great to have that sort of input.
Okay, I'll move on to the next question. So this is the one I said it's a bit more on your personal interest. You can rank them in whichever way you see fit. You can rank all of them. Which aspects of research software quality interest you most? If there is one that we haven't mentioned, there will be another word cloud afterwards of this. But so this is really what is your personal interest of aspects.
This time
Okay.
maintenance is second, Sonny.
Yeah. I'm waiting. No worries. I still see that the ranking is going on. No worries.
That's great. And there's a number of questions in the Q&A that we can tackle later a little bit more that are actually asking what EVERSE thinks about many of these aspects. I'm looking at recognition, for example, as one of them.
Okay, then this poll is done. Now I said there's a follow-up, and that would be, have we missed any aspects that would be important to mention here? Or that you see as important? Okay. I'll give it a few more seconds. So please get towards the end of your writing. Okay, a few more seconds, please. In general, if you feel there's not enough time today to let us know your interests, your maybe even worries, your contributions, or a way to engage with us, or you want to just exchange with us, and we don't have the time to touch upon everything, or if sometimes the polls are going too fast, you can always get in touch with us directly. There is a dedicated email address for this. This is contact@everse.software, which is also in the chat now. So you can contact us at any point you'd like to inquire something more, propose things, ask about stuff. We're there. Okay, I'll move on to the next question. Now, the previous question I said is very much more on the personal idea. The following question will have the exactly same answers as the one before, but I would ask you that in this case, you consider something more objective. In what training topics you would see most valuable. It does not necessarily need to reflect what your personal interests are when you're working in your daily life, but what would you see as useful that is conveyed to people who are training the trainers, for young people who are just entering this, for someone who is changing track in the career path. So this is more objectively seen. Maybe this will be the same, maybe it will be a little bit different.
I guess on this one, Sonia, one point that we should make very clear is that we are aware that there are many excellent initiatives on this aspect. Of course, the intention here is really not to rebuild something that already exists, but rather to spot gaps or incentivize and support the existing initiatives on this. And I guess from my point of view, that is very personal opinion. Sometimes we look, we tend in the academic world to make our own resources, and we're limited in looking outside, because sometimes things from the outside world don't really match our needs exactly. But I believe there's a lot to do in bridging the two communities.
Thanks,
I
Marco,
love
for
I
making
love
that clear.
about these answers the fact that there's such an emphasis on like practical aspects as well of code quality and documentation. I think that's really great that we have an audience here that's really sort of, it's the code that matters. This is really important. This is what we want to improve, and finding out the best ways to do that is one of the things we want to do with the network.
Okay, I don't see anyone being active on this one. Then this concludes the challenges and interests. And the next part is focused now on the network, the engagement with the network, engagement from your sides, and also how to have a solid communication between the EVERSE project and the EVERSE network. So how would you like to contribute to the EVERSE network? Or is there an option from the ones we list here that you think, yes, I can work with this? And there will be, as before, a follow-up question, if we haven't listed it here, that you can also say it later. I see we have two competing top answers between join the working groups and share expertise and best practices. And it's great to see how many of you are interested in a direct engagement.
Then we should decide what working groups we want to have. We obviously have a lot of people that would like to participate.
Yeah. Okay, I think the numbers are going quite still now. Then are there any other ways in which you could contribute that we haven't mentioned before? as someone working in communications, I love how many of you are there to spread the word and disseminate and help us get the word out into the world. It's great. In the interest of time, I would close this question in a few seconds and move on to the next one. Right, and then I'm moving on. What would be your preferred way to stay informed about EVERSE and the EVERSE network activities? In general, you can submit multiple answers. Also at this point, seeing as we have the newsletter here as one of the options to stay in touch in case you are not yet subscribed, you can find the link to our newsletter overview with a subscribe button right there. The link is in the chat, in the Zoom chat, so you can check it out. And this is then for now also our current email list for the network. Okay. And would there be any other ways in which you would like to stay informed? Another way that we didn't think about. Maybe also for everyone who's new on the newsletter, the next one will be in April. This is a quarterly newsletter. We just had our latest one in January. So in a few months, in a couple of months, we'll have the next one. And they're usually about what's happened in the project, where did we have engagements at conferences, at events. We present the work package, a little bit of the people, what we're doing. There's news from other similar projects from the European Open Science clusters, if there's something new, and announcements. If we're gonna go to an event, maybe you're gonna be there too, you can meet us there, or to online events, other events, we keep linking them. Okay, right, okay, there are actually quite many options for staying connected, and we will definitely check that and see how this is possible. And this is already bringing me to my last question, because we would like to stay in touch also, and we're planning a webinar series that will be starting around April, early April already. And then our question would be, which time zones, and they're mostly European time zones here, but which time zones work best for you to participate in future network events similar to this one, or topical webinars?
The world is very annoyingly round when trying to arrange events. But
Unfortunately,
I think
yeah.
one thing we would definitely do is when we have things like webinars, we would record them and post them up to YouTube so that people for whom it's not a convenient time or they have another engagement would be able to catch up offline.
Okay. Good. And I guess we have one main time slot, maybe a second. And then I would say this concludes the survey part, our part, and now we can go over to the Q&A, which in the meantime has accumulated quite a lot. So I'm handing over now to Giacomo and to anyone who is already there to answer questions, and thank you to anyone who's already been answering directly.
Yeah, thank you, Sonia. Sonia, are you going to share the questions while I read them?
I think they should be still visible on my screen.
Okay, great. So, hi everybody. It's great to see you so numerous today. I'm Giacomo, University of Edinburgh. I'm taking over for the question and answers. We've accumulated quite a few questions here, and we don't have too long. So let's start. So there is a question about the RSQ kit, which has partly already been answered by Shoaib, but let's bring it up. There are many free tools available for measuring software quality. Yeah, CodeSyn and naming some of them. How will the RSQ kit differ? To know if maybe Shoaib wants to repeat what has already been answered there.
Yeah, so the name kit is slightly misleading, can be misleading. Kit, we use it's becoming, term kit is having a new kind of meaning within research in terms of guidance and best practice. So we are not producing any software. We are collecting information about software, best practice, and contextualizing that. And then we'll be pointing out to tools like the tools that were mentioned. We certainly, the aim is not to produce a new software toolkit.
Thank you, Shoaib. I invite the other members of the EVERSE team to chip in and answer questions if they feel like to. So the next question that I would like to bring up is, in contrast to industry concepts for software quality, how do you plan to include recognition for research software engineering? This is a question around recognition of for the development or research software. Do we have a taker here for this question from the EVERSE team? Thank you, Fotis.
I can give it a shot. So the key question that we're trying to address is primarily what are the activities that are currently not being recognized anywhere sufficiently, focusing primarily on the academic and research context, but this should be expanded also to industry. That's why we really try to make sure that industry is connected to EVERSE, or at least have a say in what we're trying to achieve. That's the main effort we're trying to do, mapping activities that are currently not being recognized. As soon as we have this as a complete framework, we want to align to similar activities around reward recognition, primarily in EOSC, and see whether we can have something that goes beyond EVERSE. That's our plan. And hopefully next time we have this wire of an event, I'll have more concrete outcomes to report.
Thank you, Fotis.
Could I chip in here? Sorry, I couldn't find the hand button. Giacomo. Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that we would really want to encourage actually is software citation. So this is something that a number of us have worked on for quite a while, and I think that it's really important that when people are producing scientific results, that they actually acknowledge the software that was used. And I think that will have a huge knock-on effect for the developers of that software and for that software being able to attract funding lines in the future to ensure that it's able to continue. So that's one very concrete thing that we would hope to encourage and develop some best practice around.
Thank you, Graham. And I think that there's another one for Fotis here, which is around future funding of EVERSE or the network. Can we say something about our ambitions or?
They're definitely not easy questions, right? So we're still early on, so we are not even over year one, despite all the effort that we've been doing in the last 9 months, to be honest. So we don't have a very concrete plan. That being said, there are two elements that need to be mentioned here. One is that there is the EOS Opportunity Area 7 and around research software and the activities around EOS that hopefully will gravitate a bit more towards software itself. And second, one of the hopefully outcomes of the project, as indicated by the name itself, is to define a virtual institute for research software. This was intentionally mentioned, described quite broadly, whether this could be a federation of institutes or a more coherent structure or yet another initiative remains to be seen as we are maturing as a project. But these are two of the key mechanisms that we are currently looking at. Of course, the situation in research is always being fluid. EOS is nowadays something completely different on this what I was aware 2 years ago. So maybe when we're closer to 2027, we'll have a much more clear picture of what would be the actual mechanism and vehicle that we'll be using for the papers.
Thank you. There's an interesting, more technical question here. How will EVERSE demonstrate the relationship between software design and software quality? Nice. Any taker here? Thank you, Shoaib.
It's a great question.
Yeah.
And I think the answer to that question is that we need some experts to help us write such a page on RSQKit. How does great software design lead to better quality? Because there's definitely a relationship between well-designed software and software quality.
Thank you, Shoaib. Next questions about maintainability. Why is maintainability not being considered as a core software quality requirement? And a reference to the workshop on the evaluation of tools and services. Is there here somebody involved with that workshop who could answer? Maybe not. Fotis.
Try again. So maintainability, sustainability, fairness, openness, all those are equally relevant qualities of research quality. So we are still trying to define what will be the actual structure that we'll have for those good practices and indicators. But I can definitely say for sure that good practice indicators around maintainability are already being considered. What is not possibly yet defined is the way that we want to organize and structure those good practices and indicators, which is something that we are currently doing quite effectively. From my side, and personally speaking, I understand how maintainability can be critical. So it is definitely worth thinking how this can be done. On the other hand, I want to make sure that whatever is produced will resonate to the wider researcher community. So my ambition is to have a structure that is equally relevant for the very technical RSCs, which are very familiar with coding, but also to people who are actively involved in research software coding, but not trained as such.
Thank you, Fotis. I would like to bring up this question now about yet another research software community. What is the added value of yet another research software community? I'm starting to get concerned that it will dilute the effort and effect to spread us even more thinly. So there is a good answer here from our colleague, EVERSE colleague Carlos, which I can read unless Carlos wants to say it. So the idea is the opposite. We want to connect these initiatives to share resources and avoid duplication of effort. In that sense, EVERSE aims to have to coordinate these. Also, practically, we have some funding to dedicate to these efforts. So we would like to connect initiatives rather than duplicate effort, and in that sense increase the impact of these initiatives. So let's move to the next question.
Giacomo, I think probably the last one, after which we'll have to start wrapping up.
Yeah, you're right. So are there preferences, or will I just go with the next one?
I think there's been a few questions on the software sustainability too we could touch upon.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, so how does EVERSE define the concept of software sustainability or sustainable software? Who would like to pick this up? Quite a wide question. Thank you, Shoaib.
Software sustainability, one of the kind of, it's quite a wide-ranging definition in terms of longevity, maintainability. It kind of bundles a few things together. We hope to define it better is the point I'm trying to make, and tie it into some of existing things, for example, like maintainability, which is more well specified. But it does have this notion of long-term systems.
Okay, thank you, Shoaib. Before I hand it back to Marco, so we are asked if we will make available the questions and answers. Yes, we will. There are a lot of very interesting answers here. We will need some time to curate everything, but yes, we plan to publish the results of this workshop. And Marco, this is for you. You're muted.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Giacomo. Thanks for handling this Q&A session. It was great. Sanya, do you want to give us some more latest news about EVERSE and follow-ups to this meeting?
Yes, it's similar to what Giacomo just said. So as you see, we've seen a lot of engagement here, many questions we couldn't get back to. We've seen a lot of the results. So yes, we'll take some time over the next days to go over them, collect them, see what's happening. And we would then plan to get back to you. And this would easiest be with the probably with the subscribers we have from the newsletters, because this is our main engagement. So everyone who's on this list, and we can also cross-check it with the Indico registrations that we get back to with all the answers. We'll prepare a document, a slide overview, sort of an info dump for you to see where we will be starting off from what we got today. And from my side, many thanks for the great engagement. And Marco, I'm giving over to you for the last concluding words.
Yeah, I think that's it. Thanks, Tanya. Without you, we would be lost. And yeah, I just want to thank everyone for joining today. We've taken already 90 minutes of your precious time, but having so many of you on the call, it means that the topic is felt, and it's a need of the community. It reinforces our thinking around that, and it was great to see so much engagement. So now you have all the coordinates for the EVERSE project, and so stay tuned, subscribe to the network, and let's carry on, yeah, let's stay tuned on the news channels, and see you all very soon, probably. Thanks everyone for joining today, and thanks to all the presenters as well. Goodbye.